Honorable members, prayers. Almighty God, we humbly beseech thee to look with favor upon this Parliament of the Republic of Ghana. Grant that it may perform its high duty as in thy sight. Give divine guidance to the President of the Republic, endow members of Parliament and ministers of state with discernment and vision, integrity and courage, that through the labors of government, this land and people may be well and truly served, and thy good purposes for the common human life be realized in our midst. Amen. O God, grant us a vision of our country, fair as it might be, a country of righteousness, where none shall wrong his neighbor, a country of plenty, where evil and poverty shall be done away with, a country of brotherhood, where all success shall be founded on service and honor shall be given to the deserving, a country of peace, where government shall rest on the will of the people and the love for the common good. Bless the efforts of those who struggle to make this vision a living reality. Inspire and strengthen our people that they may give time, thought, and sacrifice to speed the day of the coming beauty of Ghana and Africa. Amen. Honorable members, item 2, corrections of votes and proceedings and official report. Votes and proceedings dated Friday, 23rd February, 2018, page 1. Page 2. Page 3. Page 4. Page 5. Page 6. Page 7. Page 8. Page 9. Page 10. Honorable members, in the absence of any corrections, the votes and proceedings as read is deemed as a true reflection of proceedings. Official report dated 2nd February 2018. Honorable members, any corrections? Honorable members, in the absence of any corrections, the votes and proceedings are deemed to represent and reflect the true record of proceedings. Honorable members, item listed 3, urgent question. If the Honorable Minister for Aviation may please take the appropriate seat, and the Honorable Member for Adaklu, please, your question.
Right, Honorable Speaker, I thank you for the opportunity to ask the Minister for Aviation what caused the unfortunate crash of a Starbow plane at the Kotoka International Airport on the 25th of November 2017. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much. Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, It will be recalled that a Starbow aircraft was involved in an accident at the Kotoka International Airport on 25th November 2017. A preliminary investigation team from the Ghana Civil Aviation Authority conducted investigations on the same day at the accident site to examine, inspect, and collect data and documentation from the aircraft to later enhance investigation. Notification of the accident was dispatched on 26 November 2017 by Ghana Civil Aviation Authority to the following agencies in accordance with the requirements of Annex 13. Ministry of Aviation, Ghana, Transportation Safety Board, Pratt & Whitney, Aircraft Manufacturer, ATR, the Accident Investigation Bureau, and BEA, which is the Bureau d'Enquête d'Analyse in France. Subsequently, the Minister of Aviation, pursuant to subsection 13.6 of the Ghana Civil Aviation Amendment Act 2016, Act 906, constituted and inaugurated a 5-member committee chaired by Air Commodore Nana Kreku, retired, on the 8th of December 2017 to investigate the accident in order to ascertain the probable cause or causes of the accident and to make recommendations to prevent further occurrence. Mr. Speaker, the objectives of the investigation were to establish the probable cause or causes of the accident, to determine the extent of fatalities and injuries, if any, to establish the extent of losses or damage to property, and to consider other issues relevant to the interest of safety, and to make recommendations to forestall any future occurrence, and also to come out with a preliminary report within 30 working days. Mr. Speaker, the mode of investigation was the following. The committee combined meetings, field visits to the accident scene, interviews with affected stakeholders, mostly importantly passengers, the Ghana Civil Aviation Authority, Ghana Airports Company Limited, and operator of the aircraft, Aero Service Limited, Starbow. The manufacturer and owner of the aircraft were also invited to participate in the investigation. As part of the investigation, 2 members of the committee traveled to Bureau d'Enquête d'Analyse in France with a flight data recorder, FDR, and cockpit voice recorder, CVR, to be decoded to give real-time sequence of events that happened in the aircraft and also display all the avionic information in order to aid the committee in its investigation to come out with its preliminary and final report. Mr. Speaker, the sequence of events leading to the accident is as follows. In the course of the investigation by the committee, the following sequence of events was established. Flight IKM 104 started taxiing at 12:14 hours for departure to Kumasi. There were on board 60 passengers, 3 infants, and 5 crew members. The weather at that time was clear, but deteriorated rapidly, resulting in heavy downpour before the pilots were ready to take off. During the takeoff run, the aircraft gradually drifted off the runway without the crew appreciating it as a result of the severity of the weather. In the process, the captain's seat inadvertently moved rearward, which made the captain transfer control of the aircraft to the co-pilots. At this point, the aircraft was virtually off the runway. The crew initiated action to bring the aircraft to a stop, but did not follow the correct procedures. Most importantly, they did not select reverse thrust, which would have slowed down the aircraft much faster. There was also lack of adequate coordination among the crew during the flight. There was a reported case of 1 passenger who was severely injured, 4 other passengers with minor injuries and damage to a precision approach path indicator light, as well as the inner perimeter fence at the Kotoka International Airport. Mr. Speaker, the preliminary findings based on the investigation carried out are the following. Loss of situational awareness on the part of the cockpit crew leading to runway excursion, and failure by the crew to execute the correct procedures in aborting the takeoff. The mitigating measures proposed by the committee are as follows. Given the sequence of events leading to the accident and the preliminary findings by the committee, the Ministry of Aviation, being the lead institution for the aviation sector, is taking some measures in collaboration with stakeholders in the industry to make air transport safe and also curtail the reoccurrence of these accidents in the future. These measures, among others, are that the Ghana Airports Company Limited is to review its standard operational procedures and responses of all first respondents. Management of air traffic control at GCA is to ensure that all staff are familiar with all requirements of the accident and incident procedures contained in existing SOPs. Ghana Civil Aviation Authority is to establish a standing preliminary investigation team with approved procedures, which will include the authority to request medical and toxicology tests. Starboard is to review its operational control and ensure it hires adequate, qualified operational personnel. Starboard is to arrange a retraining of its crew to include cockpit resource management and aborted takeoff procedures. Starboard should ensure that the Airworthiness Directive number 2016-0256 is effected on all subsequent ATRs before they are added to their fleet. Pilots should exercise extra caution when taking off in adverse weather conditions. Mr. Speaker, I'm here with a high-powered team made up of directors from the ministry, the MD of Ghana Airport Company and his deputy, and the Deputy Director General of Ghana Civil Aviation and other technical staff, as well as the representative of the management of Starboard. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I thank you very much for the opportunity. I also want to thank the Minister. Mr. Speaker, during the answer, the Minister said, made mention of things like, before takeoff, there was clear weather, and then there was sudden deterioration of weather. Mr. Speaker, she also talked about the captain's seat having moved backwards during takeoff. She also talked about the fact that certain cockpit procedures were not followed, and that after the accident, there was lack of coordination between the crew members. Mr. Speaker, I am sure most people watching us today, or at least in this chamber, have taken aircraft. Knowing the sequence of what the minister have told us, this is a real threat to anybody. Mr. Speaker, the question I ask is this. Just not too long ago, Mr. Speaker, we installed a state-of-the-art weather monitoring system in this country. Can the minister tell us whose decision it is to authorize a takeoff? Is it the the pilot's decision to take off if there's a sudden deterioration, or air traffic controller's decision? I want to know who makes the decision between takeoff and not taking off if the weather deteriorates, because it's difficult for me to understand whether the air traffic control gave a directive takeoff and within, hold on, you are not going to intimidate me. Mr. Speaker, the country...
Honourable members on my right, order.
Thank you.
This is a national matter.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, and I will encourage my colleagues. This is not politics, this is about safety. This is not politics, this is about safety. So let's find out how we can do things better. Mr. Speaker, I'm saying, can the minister tell us within which period did the weather deteriorate to the extent that air traffic control gave a directive, take off, and within the period of takeoff and then the actual takeoff, the weather deteriorated? Can the minister tell us? Majority Leader, I'm saying that I am aware. Pilots don't just take off at the airport. They get clearance from air traffic control. I'm trying to find out the meaning of sudden deterioration of weather. So, at what point in time did the weather deteriorate after air traffic control gave a directive? That's the first question.
Honourable Minister, if you please answer the question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Minister, incidentally, I'm particularly curious about the sequence of events and the difference between the suddenness of change and even how far an airplane will have moved before any disaster. The people of Ghana deserve a clear answer.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I believe the final takeoff decision is normally the pilot's decision, but he is always in contact with the air navigation traffic control. So there's no doubt about that. They work together. There's a total collaboration between the two. For this particular one, we all saw that Saturday the sudden downpour of heavy rains, and that is where the window was for this decision to be taken. And truly, they were in contact with the air traffic control, so there was no danger to that. And normally, during adverse weather, they coordinate as well. And I have even personally written as far back as June, before the rainy season, to caution that when the weather is so adverse, the pilots should exercise patience in taking off. So we are all working together, Mr. Speaker. That should be my answer.
Honourable Member.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The second one was the captain's seat moving backwards. Mr. Speaker, was this a catastrophic failure of the seat, or it was a human error, somebody not securing the seat appropriately?
Mr. Speaker, it was definitely not catastrophic. That is why we have the co-pilots. The moment the chief pilot has a problem, he hands over straight away to the co-pilot. Yes, indeed, the seat did move inadvertently. And per the findings of the committee, a spring was broken inside the pilot's seat. So all these findings are there. But it wasn't catastrophic, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Member.
Mr. Speaker, the minister said they did not follow a correct procedure. You're talking about the crew, the pilots, or just the crew in the cabin? I didn't get that clearly. Who said that? But if these procedures are about the crew, have you suggested any, apart from the retraining, any punishment for those who fail to follow procedure?
Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the chief pilot, Captain Menyela, is one of the best pilots we have at the moment in the country. So his capability is never in doubt. What happened was, per the findings, they should have applied the rear thrust instead of using the normal brakes to stop. That's what the investigative team is talking about.
Honourable Zinapo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, may I find out from the Minister, following this incident, some of which, based on your explanation, were avoidable, what measures have you taken in collaboration with your team to ensure that we do not have a repeat of this unfortunate incident, specifically with two items? One, when there's a sudden change of weather, as you said, come to the control center, then immediately alert the pilot not to take off, and to the coordination issues that you dealt with. What steps have you taken so far going forward to assure the nation that we won't have a repeat of such an incident? Thank you.
Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I must place on record that Ghana has one of the safest airwaves in the world, and I'm not exaggerating. Our quality team to ensure that we have safety on board, on the ground, and in the air is in no doubt. With this, we immediately summoned all the safety officers to have a meeting with them, even before the report came out, to make sure we were on track. And I can assure the whole nation and our stakeholders and collaborators that Ghana is very safe on the ground, in the air, and in the plane. This was a one-off, and we thank God, like the honourable member said, it's unfortunate. Nobody wished Starbow to have this accident, but it did happen. Thank God there were no fatalities, and we can assure all of us that the mitigating factors proposed by the committee will be duly followed, and I've already read them out. So, Mr. Speaker, if I may read them out again, or I'll consider it. Yes, thank you.
Honorable.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. May I ask the Minister, prior to the November 25th incident, the airline equally recorded a few incidents that were not particularly exciting to passengers. In your investigation, did you take into consideration all this as a matter of looking at the operations of the airline and the safety record, maybe the safety procedures they have been putting in place?
Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Vis-a-vis this particular investigation, they didn't have the remit to consider earlier happenings. But of course, we have taken into consideration the operations of Starbow. As much as we want to entice and invite investors to be in the aviation sector, we do not lower standards for anybody. So we will take a look at that as well. Thank you.
Very grateful, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the Minister indicated that there was some element of human error in the entire accident. And she describes the pilot as one of the best in the country. Now, that notwithstanding, there has to be some sanctions against the pilots. If there were elements of human error, we can't say that because the pilot is one of the best in the country, that should end there. There has to be some sanctions for the element of human error. Exactly what is the ministry doing as a supervisory body, to place sanctions on the pilots whose inactions or actions resulted in this accident?
Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I do not think I used those words, that there was a human error. It was a question of application of which option to use at that particular moment. He chose to use the normal braking system. The investigative team recommended that he should have used a rear thrust to stop faster. I never mentioned there was a human error. Surely, this investigation is not to apportion blame yet. We are going to study the investigations, spell out and analyze, yes, and move it forward. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The great one. Honorable member.
Thank you very much. Mr. Speaker, I heard the minister say they did not follow procedure. Not following procedure is a human error, isn't it?
Honorable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, that's a point of interpretation.
Honorable member, I see you in a position of dissatisfaction. Do you have any? You want any clarity on the matter?
I'm not, certainly, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, please, then proceed.
Mr. Speaker, procedure and interpretation, I'm at a loss. I mean, I don't think this is we are not in a law court. I don't think this has to do with any law. It's about procedure. I mean, standard operation procedure, which is normal, routine procedure that they are supposed to go through before the plane takes off. So if you don't go through that, if you don't observe the basic rules, it's negligence. So my question is
Order.
My question is, are you saying lack, of adherence to procedure? It's not wrong.
Honorable Minister. Just a moment, please. You're loudspeaker, Honorable Member.
Mr. Mr. Speaker, it's a whole gamut of issues. We are talking about the incident, and then there will be the procedure for evacuation. These are all incorporated in the report. So if the team says that procedurally things were not done the way it should, it affects the evacuation process, not the actual incident. Thank you.
Honorable Minister, apart from the answer given, is the entirety of the report available?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I'll crave your indulgence to deposit a copy in this House.
I'll be glad if it will be tabled.
Yes, I'll do that.
In its entirety.
I'll do that, Mr.
So that this House can be fully informed.
Yes, sir.
And for what other further steps we may want to read and see and take out of this matter of national interest. But, Honorable Minister, the issue of Metro, the Meteorological Department, etc., lie with the Ministry of Communication, where I've been before. And things over there affect airplane matters. What is the level? Because it appears there was an issue about communication of bad weather. I want to draw your attention to what extent is the communication between you and your counterparts, so that in future efficiency in aviation may not be adversely affected by some problems that are within the realm of communication.
Mr. Speaker, they work closely together. In fact, the Meteo has a desk at the Ghana Civil Aviation Authority. They have a department which is housed in the Ghana Civil Aviation Authority office. Yes.
Thank you very much. Any other questions? Leadership.
Mr. Speaker, I want to find out from the Honorable Minister for Aviation that following the grounding of Starbow, it appears that the domestic environment, particularly Kumasi and Tamale, may be suffering from the lack of competition. But to outline to this House what general measures you have in place to ensure air safety generally in the country. Mr. Speaker, I say so because recently I was on board Africa World with a majority leader to Tamale for a parliamentary forum. And I saw the air hostess busy talking to him that in the event of an emergency, this is what they require him to do. So I reminded the air hostess that in this matter, the man is not carrying his standing orders where he will draw lines. And I was wondering whether you have the state of mind to respond to it. So share with us what general measures you have in place to guarantee air safety across the country. Thank you.
Honorable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the conversation between the air hostess and the majority leader was a normal procedure. Normally, depending on where you sit, if it's an exit, you are briefed on how to behave when there's when there's any incident. So that is normal. So, Speaker, like I said, we are always not reneging on our responsibilities to make Ghana safe vis-a-vis aviation. And Mr. Speaker, I will emphasize that traveling by air is the safest mode of transportation. Looking at the road accidents that we have on the average about 2,000 people dying every year on our roads. And we have virtually zero in aviation, and we hope to improve on the road accidents, to eliminate that, and also to keep having a good air safety record. And as the Honorable Minority Leader said, we have no competition for our now. They are doing their best, and I believe we have a few airlines in the pipeline. I don't want to put the names out yet, but very soon, maybe in the second quarter, we'll see 1 or 2 airlines joining them to ferry our cherished compatriots up and down the country. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Majority Leadership, any questions? Honorable First Deputy Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Speaker, I'd like to know from the Honorable Minister what has happened to the person who was severely injured as contained in the report.
Honorable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, she was immediately rushed to the airport clinic and first aid was given. As they assessed her situation and found out that it was a serious issue, she was transported to Kolebu and she was operated upon. And she is doing very well now. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Honorable Majority Leader, peradventure, if you may want to. Thank you very much. Honorable Minister, we thank you very much for attending to the House and answering your questions. As a minister, you are entitled to be here anytime, and we'll be very glad to receive you. You are discharged. Honorable Member for Manya Krobo, if you will kindly get ready for the Minister for Sanitation and Water Resources. Order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to ask the Minister for Sanitation and Water Resources why Lower Manya Krobo constituency, which has the largest water treatment plant, is still experiencing water shortage, and what the ministry is doing to end this problem. Thank you very much.
Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. The water supply system in the area under question has been designed within the network to supply water to the people of Krobo Odumasi from the Accra-Tema metropolitan area, formerly called Atma Rural Water Supply System, which takes its feed from the Pong Water Treatment Plant, which indeed is one of the largest treatment plants in the country. Mr. Speaker, the treatment plant pumps water into the Yogaga Reservoir, which then flows by gravity into the Odumasi and the Sra Reservoir. From these reservoirs, the people of Krobo Odumasi and the surrounding environment are then served with potable water to consumers in the area. Currently, the Adma Rural Water Supply System has a capacity of 12 million gallons per day available for supply to the catchment area, which is projected to be enough for now. However, Mr. Speaker, the government's bid to improve the road network in the constituency, in recent times, the road construction activities being undertaken within this enclave have resulted in the destruction of some of the major pipelines serving some parts of the constituency. Mr. Speaker, it takes considerable time and effort to reinstate these damaged pipelines. This has therefore resulted in the current water supply challenges in the form of intermittent water flow being experienced in the constituency. Mr. Speaker, my ministry and that of the Roads and Highways Ministry are engaged in effective collaboration
between the road agencies as well as utility service providers. Anytime road construction work is being undertaken in urban areas, and in particular in the Krobo-Odumasi area, as part of that effort, this will help to avert the occurrence of such water supply challenges in the future. Furthermore, Mr. Speaker, the Ghana Water Company Limited has been specifically tasked to coordinate with the respective road agencies to ensure that relocation of the pipelines is undertaken to forestall future interruptions in the delivery of water supply to Lower Manya Krobo as well as other communities. This work has commenced, and it is expected that the matter will be resolved as soon as practicable. In the meantime, Right Honourable Speaker, Ghana Water Company has made arrangements to provide tanker services to some areas in which the relocation is taking place where the disruption has occurred. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister. Yes,
thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I virtually didn't hear anything. Especially your last, but I didn't hear anything because I don't have the script here.
If you had stood, I would have asked for audibility. But, Honourable Minister, if you will kindly repeat your last sentence.
Mr. Speaker, I would oblige. Mr. Speaker, the last paragraph reads, furthermore, Mr. Speaker, the Ghana Water Company has been specifically tasked to coordinate with the respective road agencies to ensure that relocation of the pipelines is undertaken to forestall future interruptions in the delivery of water supply to Lower Manya Krobo as well as the other communities. This work has commenced, and it is expected that the matter will be resolved as soon as practicable. In the meantime, Right Honourable Speaker, the Ghana Water Company has made arrangements to provide tanker services to some areas in which the relocation is taking place where the disruption has occurred. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to ask, I would like to know from the Minister, whilst the problem persists, I want to know the immediate arrangements that has been put in place, especially the secondary schools that we have. To mention a few, Manya Krobo Secondary School, Krobo Girls, Akro Sectec, and the rest. Arrangements in place to get them water.
Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, as I indicated, the Ghana Water Company has made arrangements for tanker services to supply water to the areas affected. It's my view that if the Honourable MP has priority list of areas to be targeted, I'll forward this to the Ghana Water Company to make sure the tanker services deliver water to those areas. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. How many of those tankers have been deployed to Lower Manya, specifically, and its environs?
Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I cannot provide that answer immediately because I don't have a copy of the assessment report, the number of tanker services that have been purchased or hired to do that job. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Member.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, on this note, I would like to inform the Minister that, insofar as I'm concerned...
Honourable Member, you ask him questions.
Yes.
You can put it in your...
Your right is to ask him questions, and you will not make a statement.
Provide me with the number of tankers.
Please ask him questions. Or if what he cannot provide now, you may answer, you may ask a specific question thereon. And I know you know what to do.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much.
I'm okay. Thank you.
Honourable Minister, on that note, This is constituency specific. Honorable members, we have certain agreed principles. On that note, you are discharged. Question listed 4. Honorable member for Kumbungu, and if the Honorable Minister for Information will please take the appropriate seat. Honorable member for Kumbungu. I believe this is a Kumbungu affair. I believe this is a Kumbungu affair.
No, it's a national issue.
It goes beyond Kumbungu.
It goes beyond Kumbungu, Mr. Speaker.
Please proceed.
Thank you very much indeed. Mr. Speaker, this is to ask the Minister for Information whether the rehabilitation works at the ministry building went through competitive tender and how much the ministry spent in the rehabilitation works.
Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the Honorable Rasmo Barak's question was whether or not, quote, the recent rehabilitation works at the ministry building went through competitive tender and how much the ministry spent in the rehabilitation work, unquote. Mr. Speaker, his question should properly be framed to read whether the ongoing Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Minister, ask the question as it is. Was there competitive tender? How much was spent?
Mr. Speaker, because the works are ongoing.
Order. Order. What is not known, tell us is not known. What is known, tell us.
Mr. Speaker.
Order. Order, honorable members.
Mr. Speaker, the rehabilitation works are still ongoing, and no certificate has been tendered for payment so far. Mr. Speaker, the Ministry of Information building was in a terrible state due to several years of neglect, perhaps underpinned by the merger of the ministry with the Ministry of Communication, and which saw the relocation of the civil servants and ministers to the Ministry of Communication. The plumbing system was defective, the electric cables were exposed dangerously, the paint on the building had altogether peeled off, and there were structural deficiencies that needed fixing. Many louver blades had broken and needed replacing. As a ministry that hosts high-profile public engagements, it basically mirrors the image of government. It was therefore obvious that it needed a massive facelift to make it habitable and to provide the congenial environment needed for serious work. Mr. Speaker, we therefore took a decision to submit for the consideration of the Ministry of Finance a budget for rehabilitation of the mill building in the 2017 budget cycle. During the budget hearing of 2017, therefore, we made a case with the Ministry of Finance to allocate some money in the 2017 budget for the rehabilitation of the building. Fortunately, this was granted, and an amount of $2,025,500 was captured in the 2017 budget for the rehabilitation of the building and subsequently approved by Parliament with the passing of the Appropriation Act. Mr. Speaker, once the budget had been approved, the next logical steps were to follow the procurement procedure for awarding contracts in order to get work started. Mr. Speaker, we wrote to the Public Works Department to assess the state of deterioration and give us estimates for the rehabilitation. The PWD estimated the rehabilitation cost at $1,475,650. Based on this, we applied for a commencement certificate from the Ministry of Finance, which was approved by the Minister and granted at the beginning of the third quarter 2017. While waiting for the commencement certificate, we set about constituting the Ministry's Entity Tender Committee. The Entity Tender Committee was fully formed by the end of third quarter. The Entity Tender Committee then met and approved the Ministry's 2017 procurement plan, including the planned rehabilitation of the building. The engineer's estimate as indicated above fell within the threshold for national competitive tendering procurement method. Mr. Speaker, the ministry conducted the tender through national competitive tendering. The use of NCT required that the ministry give opportunity to all locally registered companies to take part in the tender. Consequently, the ministry invited sealed tenders from eligible companies through advertisement in the Monday, 27th November editions of the Daily Graphic and Ghanaian Times newspapers. 5 companies, namely Premier Shelter Limited, Elex Company Limited, Freedog Limited, Nikon Global Limited, and CAT Contract and Services, showed interest in the project by purchasing tender documents. By the deadline for submission of tenders, 4 companies out of the 5 that purchased the tender documents, namely Premier Shelter, Elex Company, Freedog Limited, Nikon Global Limited, submitted sealed tenders. After receiving the sealed tenders, the ministry proceeded to open the bids in the presence of the representatives of the companies that submitted sealed tenders. Subsequent to the bid opening, a 5-member evaluation committee with representation from the Finance and Administration Directorate, the Accounts Unit of the Ministry, Estate Unit of the Information Services Department, and the project consultant, PWD Prestige, was constituted to evaluate the submitted bids. The committee recommended award of contract to Nikon Global Company Limited, which was adjudged as the most responsive tenderer at a sum of 1,334,036 cedis 30 pesos. The other companies quoted prices as follows: Elex Limited, 1,357,918 cedis 20 pesos. Premier Shelter Limited, 1,730,000 cedis. Freedog Limited, 2,714,247. The recommended contract amount fell within the approval threshold of the Entity Tender Committee of the Ministry. Therefore, the ETC was invited to consider and approve the recommendation of the Evaluation Committee. The ETC accepted the recommendation of the Evaluation Committee and granted approval for the award of contract to Nikon Global Limited at a meeting held on Friday, 22nd December 2017. Having secured approval from the ETC, the Ministry went ahead to award contract to Nikon Global Limited and duly informed the Ministry of Finance of the award of contract. The consultant for the project is yet to raise any certificate for payment. Hence, no payment has been made so far on the contract. Mr. Speaker, mindful of the likely lapse of the 2017 financial year, we made provision in 2018 budget to take care of the rehabilitation works. So there's provision in the 2018 budget for paying the contractor when work is complete and certificates are raised. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, Honorable.
Mr. Speaker, when did the contractor begin work at the Ministry of Information? And what is the extent of work done so far?
Honorable Minister, did you please get the question? Please go on.
Yeah, the contractor moved to site immediately after the approval, so this must have been towards the end of December. And as we speak, a lot of the worn out bathroom wash bowls, etc., have been done. The electrical wiring is also ongoing. That's what I can say about the extent of it. But he's been given up to 6 months to finish.
Honorable.
Mr. Speaker, my question was in relation to the percentage of work done so far. How much work has the contractor done thus far? 10%, 20%? Kindly tell this House.
That's a different question.
Mr. Speaker, I do not know what percentage of work the contractor has done so far.
Finally, Mr. Speaker, when is the contractor expected to complete the work?
Mr. Speaker, I said that he was given 6 months from January. So by June, he should finish and hand it over.
Leadership.
Speaker, may I find out from the Honorable Minister for Information how much is provided in the 2018 budget for the purpose of this project?
Honorable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, 2 million cedis has been approved in the 2018 budget for this work.
Speaker,
Leader.
2 million against 1.1 million. Can you explain why the figure in the budget is more than the contract figure?
Honorable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I said in my submission that we argued for 2 million as a rough estimate at the time as what we thought will work. But when PWD came to do the assessment, they assessed it to cost 1,475,000. That's the reason.
Thank you very much. Honorable Minister, thank you very much for attending to the House and answering our questions. You are discharged. Honorable members, question listed *285 is withdrawn. No statement. At the commencement of public business, item listed 6. By the Honorable Majority Leader and Minister for Parliamentary Affairs.
Speaker, you can do 6 item listed at 6A. 6A.
Honorable Majority Leader, you rise to lay the paper.
Speaker, I was saying that we can present the paper listed as item number 6A, and thereafter we'll do 6B.
Listed as
6A.
6A. Item 6A.
Semi-annual report of the Bank of Ghana on the petroleum holding funds and the Ghana Petroleum Funds for the period July 1 to December 31, 2017.
Honourable members, the report is presented. It's referred to the Ministry of Mines and Energy as well as the Ministry of Finance. Only the Finance Committee for consideration and report. Item 6B, Honourable Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, the Minister responsible for monitoring and evaluation would do the laying of the document for the Minister of Finance, who is caught up in a very serious meeting.
Honourable Minister, Honourable Majority Leader and Minister, Honourable Minority Leader, the Majority Leader is a Minister. Do you have any difficulty?
Speaker, he is making the application on behalf of a minister who is not present before this House. I don't find his explanation satisfactory. Where is the Minister for Finance? That the Minister for Monetary Evaluation must lay the paper. Is he not aware that he is to appear before this House and present this important paper?
In parliamentary parlance, when a minister is unavoidably absent, relevant persons act on his behalf, and that is daily in use in the House of Commons. Unavoidably absent. Honourable Majority Leader,
Speaker, I said to the House that the minister is in a meeting. The Speaker, that is what I said. Since he's asking for further and better particulars, the minister is in a meeting. And Mr. Speaker, except to add that that meeting is holding outside the jurisdiction.
Honorable Minority.
Mr. Speaker, I was thinking you would find some umbrella space in your safety net of being unavoidably absent. But if he says he's in a meeting, is he suggesting that that meeting is more important than appearing before Parliament?
Honorable
Mr. Speaker, I thought, because the minority leader was looking directly at me, I thought his ears were also strained directly at me. Because I said to him that the minister is in a meeting outside the jurisdiction. Mr. Speaker, that is further and better particulars.
Honorable Majority Leader and Minister, you will please proceed and lay the paper.
Mr. Speaker, I asked the Minister for Monitoring and Evaluation
you
to do the laying on behalf of the
Minister for
Evaluation and Monitoring.
Very well. Honorable Minister, you may proceed.
Loan agreement between the government of the Republic of Ghana and the African Development Fund for an amount not exceeding the equivalent of 27,864,750 units of accounts, equivalent to 39.01 million United States dollars to finance the Savannah Zone Agricultural Productivity Improvement Project.
The loan agreement is presented and is referred to the Finance Committee. Item 7. First reading of bills. A. Ghana Cocoa Board Amendment Bill 2017. The Honorable Attorney General.
Mr. Speaker, I rose earlier on. Unfortunately, I didn't attract your attention. I wanted to pray you to add the leadership of the Committee on Agriculture to the Finance Committee in respect of 6B for the consideration of the referendum and report, just the leadership of the Agri Committee.
So, Honorable Majority Leader, we're proceeding to deal with this. I don't get you, I'm sorry.
Mr. Speaker, you referred the paper that was late in respect of item number 6B to the Finance Committee.
To the Finance Committee?
Yes, and I was urging that you add to that committee the leadership of the Committee on Agriculture to consider that referral.
Very well. It is so added accordingly. Then 7A, Attorney General.
Speaker, again to seek your indulgence to allow the minister responsible for monitoring and evaluation to do the laying of the document on behalf of the Attorney General and Minister of Justice.
Thank you very much. No objection. The Honorable Minister, you may proceed.
An act to amend the Ghana Cocoa Board Act 1984, PNDC Law 81, to provide for a new interpretation for Minister.
Honorable members, the bill is duly presented and read the very first time and is referred to the Constitutional, Legal and Parliamentary Affairs Committee for consideration and report. 7B. 7B. Can the two honorables stand at the same time?
Mr. Speaker, the servant is not bigger than the master, so I sat down.
Beg your pardon,
I said the servant is not bigger than the master, so.
Very well. The master then.
Mr. Speaker, I want to plead with you. The nature of the amendment is saying that it really has nothing to do with the Attorney General. I crave your indulgence that you refer to the leadership of the Agri Committee and Finance Committee. The leadership of the Agri Committee and Finance Committee. It's a change of
that the leadership of the committee responsible for finance and also for Agri to please be added. Honorable Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, respectfully, this has to do with the interpretation of minister. It's a legal issue. And indeed, I would understand that we add the leaders of the Committee on Agriculture because of the remit of the operation. But certainly, it's a new interpretation that we are giving to minister. The remit of the minister may change, and perhaps in the circumstance, rather would add the leadership of the Committee on Agriculture.
Do we agree or not? Honorable Minority Leader.
Mr. Speaker.
Yes, Honorable Minority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, thank you very much. We need to appreciate that both the Constitution and the standing orders govern the process of introducing and presenting bills to this House. And Mr. Speaker, in accordance with Article 106, there is always the sponsor of the bill. And the sponsor for this purpose is, as I have the 16th November 2017, Gloria Akufu, Ms. Akufu, Attorney General and Minister for Justice. So it is not for the minister who is laying it on her behalf to decide for us who the sponsor is. There's a no sponsor. He is just standing in the stead of the minister to lay it. Whatever the merits are in it, we will examine it. But Mr. Speaker, at this stage, we should respect the standing orders and the Constitution on the first reading of bills. Then the determination as to which committee, we know it's a policy matter. Who supervises COCO board? There is a policy shift, long overdue. This should have been done at the start of government, but you are welcome. But I will follow you to
Well, Honorable Haruna, you know that by the practice of this Honorable House, we don't have the power to do substitution as by law, but we have the power to add so as to ensure efficacy. And in fact, I don't believe that if this Honorable is so inclined to do, an Attorney General present in the House will direct this House that nobody from any other ministry will I allow to participate because I presented the law. I will never rule in that regard on behalf of such an Attorney General if this Honorable House so thinks. So I just want the inclination of the House, and I'll proceed accordingly. But if the House thinks the House's own committee chairman on either Greek or any other committee will help in an issue, so be it. Honorable Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, as I've already indicated, Cocoa Board used to be under the Ministry of Finance. Mr. Speaker, that itself was some arrangement that was not really backed by the operative law. Now, the proper thing is being done by situating it within the ambit of the Ministry of Agriculture. But because it relates to interpretation, as I said, the Attorney General who is sponsoring it. And that is why I said to us that we should just join the leadership of the Agri Committee to the Constitutional, Legal, and Parliamentary Affairs Committee. That's where we are. And I will pray you to give that direction. That, and I see my chairman of Finance Committee get up when I am on my feet. If he's on the point of order, I will yield to him. So if you can give the direction, then I think we can go.
Honorable.
I have no objection to the leader's proposition. However, in the Cocoa Board has never been under the Ministry of Finance. The law is very clear. The law says the Minister for Trade. Now, people are speculating that the previous finance ministers hijacked the position. When the law is the law, he cannot do that. But a change in policy reflects a proper way to go. It was never, right now the law says trade. So, but the law is the law. The law has never changed.
Honorable Chairman.
Mr. Speaker, in view of the intervention by the Minister for Monitoring and Evaluation, which suggests that finance has had nothing to do with cocoa in the past, I would think we should just add the leadership of the Food and Agriculture Committee so that the Finance Committee will stay away from this one, because the Finance Committee has no business. It has no business. Oh, you did it earlier. Earlier.
He's changed it.
No, earlier.
He's changed it. If no application has been made, then you may make it.
Mr. Speaker, I will just go along with what the majority leader said. So the leadership of the Agri Committee will join the Committee on Constitutional and Legal Affairs. The leadership of the Food and Agriculture Committee.
The leadership of the Committee on Agriculture.
Yes.
Any objection? No. The leadership of the Agri Committee is joined accordingly. Honorable members, item 7A. Land Bill 2018, Minister for Lands and Mineral Resources. Honorable Majority Leader.
The Speaker, again, for him to do that. The Minister for Monitoring Evaluation to do that on behalf of the Minister.
Thank you. I suppose no objection. Honorable Minister.
The object of the bill is to revise and consolidate the laws on land with the view to harmonizing those laws to ensure sustainable land administration and management, effective land tenure, and to provide for related matters.
Honorable members, the bill is duly presented and read the first time, and it is hereby referred to the Committee on Lands and Forestry for further consideration and report. Item 8, the final debate on the President's address to the nation. This is for the leadership to conclude, and we have half an hour each. The time is by this time, not any other time, 1:45 the hour. Honorable Minority Leader, 1:45 the hour, and you may commence at this time. And please, this clock will determine the time.
Mr. Speaker, let me thank you for the opportunity to join colleagues in thanking His Excellency the President of the Republic of Ghana, President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, for the message on the state of the nation which he delivered to Parliament on Thursday, 8 February 2018. No, yeah. Thanks, Leader, but I'll stay here.
Honorable Minority Leader, please proceed.
Mr. Speaker, to thank President Nana Addo Dankwa, at least he obliged us as a country governed by law that he appeared before this August House. And as I have heard leaders of this House speak, not just in compliance with Article 67 of the Constitution, but Article 36. We need to read both together so that we understand what should be part of the message of the President. The management of the economy, matters of promoting economic and social development, the pursuit of our national development goals. But Mr. Speaker, in doing so, let me refer you to the very second paragraph of the President. He stated, a year ago, he appeared before this House with very lousy promises of a train starting from Takoradi to Paga. I expected that he would arrive in this House on board the particular train, work having started. That did not happen. He said, Takoradi to Paga, that some work will start. It did not start. Mr. Speaker, I'm just reminding him that the message of the State of the Nation address in 2018 was full of promises, as many broken promises they were in 2017. Mr. Speaker, he promised members of Parliament under his flagship program of $1 million per constituency. At the exchange rate of 4.2, you can do the Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia Vice President exchange rate, not the normal prevailing 4.5. It will mean that every constituency in Ghana deserves an expenditure of 4.2 million Ghana cedis. That didn't happen. That will not happen. That has been promised again. Where to finance it, we leave the answers to the President. But we know that constituencies require development so that members of Parliament can look good and look positive to ask for renewal of their mandate. A major promise that was made is also not being honored, is also not being fulfilled. Mr. Speaker, but more importantly, the President paints a picture that the economy was in a mess, as if the composure of the economy today is good. It is not. The composure of the Ghanaian economy is not good. We are still high risk in terms of debt and mismanagement. But Mr. Speaker, what is intriguing, And I'm holding the manifesto of the new patriotic party, Change, an agenda for jobs, creating prosperity and equal opportunity for all, 2016. Mr. Speaker, new patriotic party. This is what you promise. And Mr. Speaker, I quote, they promise to build a viable, strong economy. But more importantly, Mr. Speaker, their record was that the real record of the new patriotic party will be to grow. In its 2018 budget to Parliament, however, these are the growth rates that the MPP government projected. 2018, 6.8%, 2019, 7.3%, 2020, 5.6%, and 2021, 5.3%. Where is the promise of double-digit growth of the economy in your manifesto? So even as we go into 2019, 2020, and 2021, you are already promising the people of Ghana a declining growth of the economy against the pledge and promise you made in your manifesto for double-digit growth. We will ensure that the growth is socially responsible, diversified, and spread. These were your words. Our goal, I'm quoting from the MPP manifesto, our goal inter alia is to achieve double-digit GDP growth annually for the next 4 years. So, Mr. Speaker, I'm holding the budget statement here, page 163. You may want to go at it. Double-digit growth for 4 years. We're in the second year of your 4 years. But projection into 2020-2021, all a declining growth. This kind of growth will not give the economy the composure to maintain and address the growing unemployment in the country, neither will it support the growth of the private sector of the economy. And therefore, come again, when you come and say that you are managing the economy well and that you are prudent in the management of the economy. Mr. Speaker, it was instructive listening to the President on 8 February 2018. He attempted even assessing his ministers before this House. But because of the large elephant size of the government, he could only name 8 of them. He must be working to reduce the size of government. He mentioned a few. He said the Minister for Finance and National Asset, said Minister for Local Government and Rural Development, Resourceful Minister. Yes, but some were not mentioned. Is it that they are not performing or they are underperforming or he does not recognize their contribution to the success of his government? Mr. Speaker, today, Ghana, Guinness Book of Record, we have the largest size of government in the world. Nowhere in the world do you have 110 or 109 ministers of state. Wikipedia must be interested in it, so we are encouraging the President. He must downsize his government for prudent economic management, for prudent discipline in the management of state resources. Mr. Speaker, let me now take you slightly to the world of governance. And Mr. Speaker, on governance, the President said, and I quote, Mr. Speaker, he hinted on governance over election of district chief executive and others. Mr. Speaker, this is what the President had to say. And Mr. Speaker, with your indulgence, I want to quote. The President said that
the first Deputy Speaker will take the chair. Please continue. You may continue.
Honorable Minority Leader, you may continue.
Mr. Speaker, if I so need injury time, I will not hesitate to come to you to accommodate for the 1-2 minutes where you got.
Honorable Minority Leader, you notice that over
Mr.
here,
Speaker, I will not.
There's a stopwatch, so when you stopped...
Mr. Speaker, the 30 minutes will be adequate. Mr. Speaker, now on governance, and I think on that the President was reassuring when he recognized the contribution of the August House, this particular Parliament, in terms of our sacrifices over 2017 and others, the workload that we've been able to do. thanks to Mr. Speaker, the Deputy Speaker, leadership, and the clerks. We've done well. But Mr. Speaker, I was quoting page 8 of the present presentation, and I quote, "My discussions with the nation's political leaders, including the former presidents of the Republic, convinced me that it is a step we must take." Which step? Mr. Speaker, is a step about a critical step to this end is the direct election of metropolitan, municipal, and district chief executive on a partisan basis. Mr. Speaker, when the president got to this particular point, he said the resourceful minister for local government, she has to bring some of the resources to guide the president in this. Mr. Speaker, the president quotes Article 55. The constitutional impediment to this in Article 55 of the Constitution, an entrenched clause, must therefore be removed. We will support the president for the amendment to Article 55. But Mr. Speaker, I wish to take this opportunity to remind the president that Article 55 alone will not be adequate to address the matter of ensuring that district and municipal chief executives are elected and not appointed. Therefore, in addition to Article 55, we will naturally and imperatively have to amend Article 243, and with your indulgence, I quote, "There shall be a district chief executive for every district who shall be appointed by the president with the prior approval of not less than 2/3 majority of members of the assembly." So the resourceful minister for local government must guide the president well as the president's key advisor on decentralization policy. We need to marry the two. I anticipate that the president is contemplating that election to municipal district assembly should be on partisan basis. That is why Article 55(3) will be amended. But Article 243 provides for an appointment. Therefore, an amendment to 55 alone, in my view, will be constitutionally inadequate, legally untenable, if we do not do something about Article 243, which provides for an appointment of municipal district chief executive. We look forward to those constitutional processes. Mr. Speaker, the president, at some point, he will determine a penalty. He is a referee. He scores a penalty and he says, "Praise me." The president said that when it comes to the statutory funds, common fund, the GET fund, the district assembly common fund, he used the words, "We are up to date." Up to date. Up to date when you have the Health Insurance Service Providers Association of Ghana threatening to go back on cash and carry. As early as February 13, 2018, HISPAC threatened. So that they are owed 20 months. So up to date, minus the HISPAC 20 months, the president must be finding resources to compensate for the payment to those deserving workers of Health Insurance Service Providers Association of Ghana. So to say that you are up to date, when you have accumulated arrears, you have not retired, you have not paid, is to beg the issue. We expect the president to have been more candid on this particular matter. But Mr. President, more importantly, like I've stated, Mr. Speaker, more importantly, this government, they are very, very good and smart at it. You set your own questions, you mark them, and you declare your own success. District Assembly Common Fund, as of 2016, stood at 2,013.9 million Ghana cedis. The GET fund stood at 1,497 million. GET fund was 1,000,021. You came to Parliament with what you call capping. Capping means a reduction to the accumulation and the dedication to those funds. So, for instance, GET fund, which would have gotten 1 billion, you gave them only 790,000. And you say, "I've done well, mark me well, I'm up to date." Up to date with what? Up to date with what? You have capped. And in capping, it means that you have reduced the threshold of the allocation to the statutory funds. Any other person could have done that. With a reduced threshold, less obligation to pay. And even with that, you are not up to date. So we remind the president that he is not up to date. For instance, in respect of 2017-2018 District Assembly Common Fund, out of 1.5 1,575,688,000,000 was released as of September. Mr. Speaker, it's important that the President is reminded that we are not up to date on the payment of statutory funds. Both for Common Fund, Health Fund, and Get Fund, they are in distress and they require additional resources to be able to manage the issues. Mr. Speaker, again on governance, as we speak today, we are told that there will be a referendum, maybe somewhere in September. We are again reminded that district assembly elections in September. The Independent Electoral Commission is almost as a halt in its operations. We need to get the committee working on the Electoral Commission to work tirelessly because we need to work to improve the database of the Electoral Commission for the conduct of the district assembly elections and the referendum, and more importantly, to prepare the country for the 2020 presidential and parliamentary elections. What is happening now with the probe? Justifiably, the President has done what is right within the Constitution, but we need to bring closure to the matter so that the Independent Electoral Commission will begin preparing the country for the purpose, even voter registration exercise, 2017-2018, no activity. How can there be an activity with the kind of distress which is going on there? Mr. Speaker, we need to bring that matter to closure and to allow the Electoral Commission to function and function fully and prepare the country for these elections. Mr. Speaker, significant in the President's presentation was the management of debt. And the President was emphatic when he said that matters relating to the energy sector, they have dealt with the matters relating to the energy sector and the debt that he inherited. Indeed, when he said that the economy was in a mess. Yet, Mr. Speaker, he paints a picture as if he did not inherit any good from the NDC and from the President Mahama administration. That's the notion. When he says, for instance, I'm also pleased to report that the 3-year IMF-supported Extended Credit Facility Program, which began in 2015, let him be reminded, it's no longer 3 years, it's a 4-year extended program from 2015 to 2018. Beyond the 3 years, you added 1 more year. We must be asking ourselves whether we have achieved the fiscal consolidation measures we promised. The other day, the President, back with other former heads of state, including President Ouattara of Ivory Coast, were here to promise us the ECHO. Professor Jambafo, you remember when you were here about the ECHO and the role you played about the ECHO. We simply couldn't meet the convergence criteria. So it is not a question of declaring 2020. Is to manage the economy side that we can meet the minimum requirement. Debt as a percentage of GDP, consistent growth in the GDP, inflation as a variable, and many other issues, including international reserve. So to promise it is not enough. Mr. Speaker, as I said, as for promises, there are as many of it as there are opinions. So when you promise that teachers' allowances, we will pay. Nurses' allowances, we will pay. Agric extension officers of youth employment, we will pay. All of it today stand in arrears and paid. Take steps to pay them. All that stands in arrears. And even that, you are using statutory funds to pay. Easy economic management. Easy economic management. But that is not the issue. Pay them. The young people who are in the field, 7 months now, they've not been paid. So it is better sometimes to be sincere than accepting to do what you cannot do. You say you will pay them. But Mr. Speaker, I'm raising a significant issue about the retirement of debt. And the President said, and I quote, we will have to implement, and I'm quoting Mr. President from Mr. President, we will have to implement some tough, prudent, and innovative policies to get us out of the financial cul-de-sac. May I remind the President that we are not out of the financial cul-de-sac. We are not. That's why we are still in the IMF program. And Mr. Speaker, he also further said, our economist has found imaginative ways to deal with the oppressive debt situation. This has brought some relief and the annual average rate of debt accumulation. Mr. Speaker, he must recognize and praise the NDC for it. And I'm quoting from the budget statement, page 33, energy sector levies. This is what the Minister for Finance had to say in the management of the energy-related debt. So don't paint a picture as if nothing good came out of the NDC and that you didn't inherit anything useful and beneficial or prudent from President Mahama. This is what your Minister for Finance had to say on the energy sector levy. And Mr. Speaker, I quote, Mr. Speaker, prior to passing the energy sector levies at 2015, was it a New Patriotic Party government which was in power? No, the NDC, it was passed. Energy sector state-owned enterprises, including Thermal Oil Refinery, Volta River Authority, Ghana Grid Company, and Electricity Company of Ghana, struggle to effectively manage their legacy debts. That is what compelled us to introduce the energy sector debt. That innovation, not yours. That innovation, President Mahama and the NDC. Energy sector levy, Mr. Speaker, energy sector levy, ESLA. But Mr. Speaker, I want to emphasize this particular point. Almost 2 years into the implementation of ESLA, these are the words of the Finance Minister, without attribution, has contributed significantly to paying down VRA and TOS debt, due bonds, and trade creditors in the amount of 1.8 million, 1,861,000 as of September 2017. To whose innovation, to whose credit? The National Democratic Congress. And you say you didn't inherit an economy which was wetted, an economy which has helped you. So when the president says he is addressing the management of debt, we have helped him manage the debt and retire the debt. It is not his innovative ideas. Mr. Speaker, I can go on. In 2017, I'm quoting Minister for Finance again. In 2017, a total of 934.09 million was transferred to partially settle the debts of energy sector SOEs. Can you imagine what would have happened if we did not retire the debts in the energy sector? That is what would have precipitated Doomsor. You come here again and say you ended Doomsor. What did you contribute to ending Doomsor? Was your contribution by way of generation or by way of distribution? What contribution? Was it by generation or by distribution? By the time you assume office, Doomsor was long gone. We pray that there is no pressure tomorrow, depending upon how you promise to manage this issue. Mr. Speaker, still on the economy, and the president can be assured, we need to grow the economy as double digit. The president again, justifiably, he lauded himself about the growth of the economy from 3.6% 2016 to 7.9%. You have done well. In terms of non-oil GDP growth, you have achieved some modest success. I should concede that. But going forward, in the management of this economy, you must be interested in the non-oil growth, not the oil growth. In 2011, we achieved double digit. Where did it take us to? Inflation. Under President Mills, we achieved single digit. Where did it take us to after 30 months? The consistency and the sustainability of those variables is what is important in order to be able to get this going. Mr. Speaker, the president was also strong. And Mr. Speaker, I want to quote him. Road contractors, we owe, government owes them. And government owes them because we are not paying them too early. And Mr. Speaker, having been Minister for Trade and Industry, I have no hesitation in saying that the government of Ghana is at the center of the crisis of the private sector growth and development of this country. Not attributed only to New Patriotic Party, all our governments. In South Africa, you cannot have a situation where a contractor is not paid when a bill is presented within 6 to 8 months. In Ghana, contractors are in the queue waiting for payments as far back 2013. That cannot be right. That cannot be right. We need to correct it. But Mr. Speaker, I'm interested in the road sector. We in the NDC will increase the road sector levy from 7 pesewas to 40 pesewas. One further to guarantee a loan that government is currently negotiating with commercial bank. Probably what we should do to give contractors some relief, CAB will help you. Maybe adjust the 40 pesewas by 10 pesewas to 50 and use it for the purpose of retiring the road contractors' arrears. But Mr. Speaker, if the President comes to Parliament and says, and I'm quoting him, it is hard to believe that at a time when cocoa prices were going down, contracts were awarded for 3 sections of the road to be funded by Cocoa Board, referring to the Eastern Corridor route. It's convenience of financing because you know that the consolidated fund is depleted. You want an early completion of the work. Yet the President was here pretending to weep at my mother's funeral more than me. He should get the Eastern Corridor road completed. Border Boku, the road is not moving. My honorable friend from Panda, he knows I was in the constituency. You need repairs of the Panda road. Is it? You need it. But it cannot be done. It cannot be done. No.
Yes or no? Yes or no?
You need it. I mean, look at traveling between Panda and Sauda, what you go through. So, Mr. Speaker, maybe the Minister for Finance and the Minister for Road should look at the road fine levy regime and maybe we adjust it and dedicate it either to retiring arrears or for purpose of a combination of new projects and others. But again, is that your innovation, an NDC innovation and the ESLA? What you did was to come and say that you inherited an economy so bad that the people of Ghana, there is hardship in the country. Living standards are not the best in the country. We should not pretend. The lack of confidence in our democratic practice and the lack of confidence in our economy. Mr. Speaker, even as at the time that the President was presenting the State of the Nation address, he was still relying on September figures on matters of GDP growth and matters of debt. That is not acceptable. What is the Ghana Statistical Service doing? As of yesterday, we do not have the end-year figures for 2017. But you know what the overall GDP will mean as a percentage of computing government total revenue, as a way of computing debt as a percentage of GDP, and the way we will manage the economy. I think the Ghana Statistical Service must get it right. We should get the numbers right. The President was still referring to 2017 September figures. That is not a useful guide. We need the end-year numbers in order to appreciate and predict the performance of the economy going forward. So, to the President, we want to thank him, but he should get the Eastern Corridor route completed. Whether cocoa route or cocoa funded or consolidated funded. The people of Jessica traveling through Damba, through Panda, through Bimbala want a more traveling route. How it is funded, they want a good road. And a good road must be provided for them. So, Mr. Speaker, major decisions. Mr. Speaker, we are again told, one factory, one district. Flagship program of the new patriotic party. We have entered the second year. No show, little show, or less show, because there is no financing. You must be finding out the very reasons why the private sector itself is not interested in those projects. Maybe non-availability of raw materials, maybe lack of proximity to market, and then incomes. If you go to Bumpurgu, you go to Zamzuru and set up a factory. The incomes there will sustain the factory. So a private sector person will be advised what to do and what not to do in that particular area. So, Mr. Speaker, we want to thank you, but the President must recognize, that he inherited strong and viable institutions from President Mahama and the NDC. That is why government is a continuum. But when you come and paint a picture, Mr. Speaker, when you come and paint a picture, Auditor General report from 2001 to 2008, you are in government. From 2009 to 2016, the NDC was in government. We have had leakages of the Auditor General report, and I think that we should support the President in unanimity to find an answer to get a commercial court set up by Her Ladyship, the Chief Justice, in order to deal with those issues. Mr. Speaker, let me now conclude on taxes and on job creation. Again, the President in praising his Minister for Employment, my successor minister, said that 3 billion have been transferred. Transferred because, Mr. Speaker, I had the rare privilege to be at that ministry and worked out the roadmap with the 12 Workers Union on the management of the second-tier pension. But, Mr. Speaker, there are larger issues of pension, so it is not a success for the new Patriotic Party government and Nana Addo Dankwa. No, I supervised it, I signed it. Dr. Bampo is the chairperson of the group. You can find out. But beyond that, Mr. Speaker, there is a problem with pensions in Ghana. That is what the President must focus his attention on. And the problem, Mr. Speaker, is unification of pensions. The security services, particularly the armed forces, the military, the most deprived is the Ghana Prison Service. They are dying because we have not worked out a good pension package for them. The Minister for Finance must be interested in pension unification. Indeed, as we speak, state attorneys still have problems with their pension. Reconciling Cap 30 with the Pension Act is still a problem. But you can take credit and have it, that you have released the money from second tier. I recall when we said the money was at the Bank of Ghana in second tier. The Honorable Deputy Minister of Finance, he said, no, there was no money. Where did you get money to pay? Where did you get money to pay? There was money in their accounts. And Mr. Speaker, in conclusion, he also knows. The President also said determination of minimum wage and public sector wages. I don't want an individual credit. The credit is in the Public Financial Management Act. But as Minister for Employment, we ensure 2014, 2015, 2016, all was determined before the reading of the budget. This is not the first time you are doing it. You can check the record and check the PFM. Indeed, in the PFM, we said by July, you must finish negotiations on the public sector wages. I ensured by April, PFM, is that your law?
I don't want to do that. The time is up, so please wind up.
In conclusion, Mr. Speaker, 5 minutes to conclude. 10. The leader is enjoying the debate.
Just be informed that
there is an opportunity sitting here. Mr. Speaker, I will be concluded, and I will conclude on an important matter to which the President needs the support and the assurance of the Ghanaian people. And Mr. Speaker, is the President's courage to introduce for the first time in our country's history a special prosecutor under the mandate of the Attorney General to help slippages and leakages in fighting corruption, as the appointee who appeared before your committee assured us. Mr. Speaker, we can assure the President that on this matter, he can count on our wholehearted support to make corruption a high-risk activity, to punish it. I expect that the Honorable Martin Hamidou, he comes to the office with integrity. We expect that the President will introduce the Right to Information Bill, but I expect that this country, given the character of Mr. Martin Hamidou, will benefit from what I call a corruption savings dividend. I believe if he has our national support, to which we all must assure him. But Mr. Speaker, I'm told by the American Institute for Administration that fighting corruption, it is not just the legal fixes. We need to get our institutional mechanisms right. And Mr. Speaker, on that note, I want to conclude. when you have a president who demonizes and bastardizes sole sourcing and comes to this house and say 56% was sole sourcing. After all, it is lawful. But they said, in the budget, you said you'll be strict, sole sourcing. And again, the minister didn't help the president. All he did was to add up those projects that were rejected and say 800 million have been saved. What kind of arithmetic is that? You must execute the project at a lower cost to make savings for value for money. Not just pick up the additions and say, I have saved money. But after all, you have come to recognize that there can be expediency and compelling exigencies that allow for sole sourcing. And that it was lawful yesterday, lawful today, lawful tomorrow. And you are using it as a tool, but ensure value for money. Mr. Speaker, so I want to thank the President. We have achieved 25 years of a stable, strong, peaceful, democratic government. We've become a beacon of hope in many other parts of the world. We should keep it up. We should build a stronger parliament that you are helping to support with a review of our standing orders. We expect to have a more viable parliament that makes government accountable. My regret, Mr. Speaker, has been that parliamentary oversight in Ghana over the years have remained a function of the political opposition. We need to correct it. With this, Mr. Speaker, I thank you for the opportunity.
Honorable Majority Leader, it is your turn now to put the final words on the debate.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity. Mr. Speaker, as you all do know, the obligation of the President to come to Parliament to deliver a message on the state of the nation is captured under Article 67 of the 1992 Republican Constitution. The Speaker, a session of Parliament begins in January on account of the birth of Parliament, the Parliament of the Fourth Republic, on January 7th. The state of the nation, Mr. Speaker, is the situation that the nation finds itself in at any given time, the circumstances of the state. And that is what the President comes to deliver to us. The President would usually set out his vision into the ensuing year. Then, Mr. Speaker, we expect the work program of the government to take a cue from the vision expressed by the President and then to give expression to the vision that the President would have expressed in the State of the Nation address. Mr. Speaker, until November 1998, when the late Honorable Ban Redu agitated the minds of this Parliament, that indeed we seem to have inverted the chronology of events and that we were not going according to the constitutional imperatives. The State of the Nation addresses had always been presented to us in January, and then would follow the budget, because the budget then would derive its strength from the State of the Nation address. Unfortunately, when we started complying with the constitutional imperative, we have a situation where the budget comes to be presented, and then thereafter, the State of the Nation address follows. Really, it should be the other way around. Mr. Speaker, Article 67 of the Constitution is entrenched, but the article on the presentation of the budget is non-entrenched. And so I would want to believe that as a House, we will sit down and sort this chronology out. Otherwise, we will always have the cart before the horse. And Mr. Speaker, I believe that will be the proper thing to do. Mr. Speaker, the content of such an address, the message on the state of the nation is captured in Article 34.2. And Mr. Speaker, with your indulgence, I may want to quote Article 34.2. It provides, the President shall report to Parliament at least once a year all the steps taken to ensure the realization of the policy objectives contained in Chapter 6, that is the chapter on the directive principle of state policy, and in particular, the realization of basic human rights, a healthy economy, the right to work, the right to good health care, and the right to education. Appropriately, therefore, Mr. Speaker, any analysis, any critique of the present message should be benchmarked on the content of Chapter 6 of the Constitution. Mr. Speaker, at the very outset, the President acknowledged the collaborative effort of Parliament in partnering his administration by having extra sittings to pass relevant pieces of legislation. In particular, he mentioned the 5 flagship programs: the Zongo Development Fund, the Northern Belt Development Authority, the Middle Belt, the Coastal Belt, and the Office of the Special Prosecutor. Mr. Speaker, for all my years in Parliament, this is the first time a president, in delivering his message on the state of the nation, has given pride of place to Parliament. This is the first time. Mr. Speaker, this is a president who is a product of this House and who has not forgotten the contribution of Parliament to national development. He rose to the occasion to pay glowing tribute to Parliament. And this House should be proud of such acknowledgement. Mr. Speaker, the next issue addressed by the President is the health of the economy. In his last beginning of session message on the state of the nation, President John Dramani Mahama coined a hyphenated word, evidence-based, to describe his efforts in various areas of our national endeavor. The President then, among other things, related to 5 piglets that he had given to a peasant farmer upcountry as a testimony of which the state had to pay for the woman's transportation from upcountry to Accra, provide her with hotel accommodation for 4 days, and spend to provide food for her and take her on 2 days of excursion. Mr. Speaker, that's indeed satisfied the evidence-based message on the state of the nation. The President of the Republic today resorted to economic indicators, GDP growth rate, inflation, interest rates, international reserves, reduction in fiscal deficit, reduction in debt to GDP ratio, consumer and business confidence, relative exchange rate stability, payment of accumulated arrears in statutory obligations, and many others, to underscore the fact that the economy is experiencing a turnaround, even when he admitted that we are not out of the woods yet. Mr. Speaker, unless anybody would suggest different figures from what the President churned out, and the President based his own on the figures given by the Ghana Statistical Service, then clearly, as the President said, the macroeconomic indicators, the macroeconomic fundamentals today, comparatively, are solid. And as well, other critical indices are pointing in the right direction for us as a country. Mr. Speaker, the President was blunt in his declaration that the country he inherited was in economic mess, an economy that was in distress, choked by debts, and I'm quoting the President's words, an economy that was in distress, choked by debts and with macroeconomic fundamentals in disarray. I know the blunt statement by the President has irked many members on the other side. Mr. Speaker, but what are the facts? It is true that for the first time, adding proceeds to the national kitty increased our GDP growth rate to 14.4%. Mr. Speaker, that was in 2011. That was in 2011. Since then, economic growth has taken a nosedive. Since then, Mr. Speaker, in 2012, the GDP growth rate registered 9.3%. 2013, 7.3%. 2014, 4.0%. 2015, 3.8%. And worst of all, 2016, 3.6%.
Who did that?
Mr. Speaker,
who did that?
Mr. Speaker, within just 1 year, the GDP growth rate has bounced back and more than doubled to a provisional figure of 7.9%. That is more than 119% turnaround on our scale.
14%.
Mr. Speaker, as the President said, indications are that it will be better this year. Mr. Speaker, over the past 25 years,
14% was what?
Over the past 25 years, indeed since the beginning of the Fourth Republic, there has not been a single year, where the economic growth between 1 year and the next succeeding year has grown by 100%. From 1992, and of course we had oil in 2010, May 2010, and then it registered in 2011. Mr. Speaker, I'm saying to us, we have had oil with us since 2011, and yet, not between 1 year and the next have we managed to grow the economy by 100%. 119% is, Mr. Speaker, my colleagues don't even understand what I'm saying. Because they are not able to say that we grew by 14.4%. That's not the issue that I'm raising. Because I'm saying to you that the year before the 14.4, we had grown the GDP growth rate at 7.6. Double that we have taken out to 15.2%. We managed 14.4. And I'm saying to us, Mr. Speaker, I'm saying to us that this is the first time in 25 years that we have grown the economy by more than 100% between the next succeeding year and the year. Mr. Speaker, people should be grateful. People should be grateful and recognize the better economic managers of this country. Mr. Speaker, as the President assured, inflation has climbed down from 16.5 November 2016 to less than 12% now. And interest rates are cascading down here. Mr. Speaker, international reserves have increased both in gross and net terms. Mr. Speaker, government has paid about 50% of inherited arrears and statutory obligations and reduced fiscal deficit from 9.3 to 5.6 in just 1 year. In just 1 year. Mr. Speaker, what else can Ghanaians wish for? As far as the economy is concerned, it is much, much healthier today than it was in 2016. The President was candid with us, Mr. Speaker, when he said, Mr. Speaker, and I'm quoting the President, I do not suggest in any way that these headline-grabbing figures mean we are anywhere near resolving our economic problems. Mr. Speaker, Article 35, Sub 2 of the Constitution provides that the President, on behalf of the state, shall take measures to protect and safeguard the territorial integrity of Ghana, amongst others. The President has succeeded in doing this in a very profound manner by bringing his own Attorney General, the Honorable M.S. Gloria Akufo, together with Mrs. Matilda Brio Appiah, the former Attorney General, to fight, to salvage what is truly Ghana's. In the case that went to the International Court of Arbitration, Ghana succeeded, and the President, by that singular act, the Speaker, has succeeded in protecting and safeguarding the territorial integrity of this country. The Speaker, now Article 35, 8 of the Constitution deals with what is required to be done to nip corruption in the bud. Article 35(8) of the Constitution provides, the state shall take steps to eradicate corrupt practices and the abuse of power. We all know the ravages of corruption, as the minority leader has alluded to. Above all, it impedes development and impoverishes the generality of our citizenry. The fight, Mr. Speaker, to fight it, as a people, we have given ourselves the Public Procurement Act. And since the minority leader is quick to claim credit for whatever acts the previous administration passed, he was not candid enough to also acknowledge that the PPA was also crafted under President Kufuor. Acknowledge that. Acknowledge that. Mr. Speaker, one of the central issues that PPA Act was to confront is sole sourcing and restrictive tendering as methods of procurement. Mr. Speaker, about 80% of all public expenditure in Ghana, excluding the amount that we set aside to service our debts and amounts for personnel emoluments, of the remaining, about 80% of all our monies go into procurement. Procurement of goods and services. And that is why we should be concerned as a country with procurement. Mr. Speaker, so wherever you have sole sourcing and restrictive tendering, even though we admit that they are legal, we must raise red flags. Because as you all do know, some public official somewhere wants to cloud issues by not being open, by not being transparent. And that's why we should all be concerned. Mr. Speaker, as a Nigerian friend of mine told me some time ago, in methods of sole sourcing, the more you look, the less you see. So it's important, it's imperative for us to be concerned. If a regime is so much tolerating sole sourcing and restrictive tendering, Mr. Speaker, those of us here, as members of parliament, may not be benefiting. And yet, when the political class is maligned, we all suffer the consequences. And that's why we should be concerned. Mr. Speaker, it is the reason why the nation should have cause to celebrate the stunning figures given by the president when he said, and I quote him, in 2016, PPA had 622 sole source requests. 597 of that number, that is 98%, were approved. There were 592 requests made for restricted tenders and 587, that is 99.15%, were approved. We should all be concerned. Mr. Speaker, in 2017, 394 sole sourcing requests were made and 223, that is 56.6%, were approved. That is a significant reduction. It doesn't mean that we should go to sleep. It doesn't mean that we should go to sleep. There were 346 requests for restricted tenders, out of which 167, that is 48%, were approved, and 179, representing 52, were rejected. The president said that in the process, we made about 800 million Ghana cedi saving. Mr. Speaker, this effort certainly is commendable and must be sustained. As a House, we must urge the president that next year when he appears before us, the figures should still climb down significantly. The nation would therefore be moving forward if we went on that path. Mr. Speaker, the Office of the Special Prosecutor has been established against spirited efforts to abort the fetus. Last Friday, the president swore the first officer of that office, Mr. Martin Amidu, into office. One can only wish him well and hope that he does not disappoint the nation. Speaker, there's so much belief and trust, so much goodwill. Let him begin in earnest. One hopes that the officer will live up to his responsibilities and help this nation to fight corruption with bare knuckles. Mr. Speaker, I trust that next year, by the time we come to debating the next message on the state of the nation, the Right to Information Bill would have been passed to provide the relevant assistance to dealing a decisive blow to the canker. Mr. Speaker, Article 34(2) again provides, and I quote, the right of the citizens to work. Last year, when the President addressed the nation, he said, Mr. Speaker, and I'm quoting what the President told us last year, Mr. Speaker, if I were to ask each one of you in this chamber today to tell me what the #1 problem was in your constituency, I suspect there would be a uniform answer: jobs, unquote. To address the challenges associated with unemployment, the President then enumerated 13 key elements on pages 7 and 8 of last year's message. This year, the President admitted, and I'm quoting him, that the subject of job creation has to be at the top of my agenda, insisting that he is determined to work to guarantee and secure the future of the young men and women of our country. Mr. Speaker, going forward, he mentioned the establishment of the Nation Builders Corps, which, according to him, has now produced or employed about 100,000 young men, and then a further 300 young men unemployed who have been registered on the Digital Marketing and Entrepreneurship Program. Mr. Speaker, in full throttle, the Development Authority, the 3 development authorities, the Songo Development Fund, are also going to employ so many of the unemployed youth in the country. Mr. Speaker, in this regard, the President is satisfying the imperative of Article 34(2). Mr. Speaker, the Constitution makes education a right, not a privilege. That is the language of Article 34(2), which the President must report on. Mr. Speaker, Article 25(1)(a) of the 1992 Republican Constitution provides that basic education shall be free, compulsory, and available to all. Indeed, Article 38(2) provides, and I quote, the government shall within 2 years after Parliament first meets after the coming into force of this Constitution draw up a program for implementation within the following 10 years for the provision of free, compulsory, and universal basic education, FQ. What this means, unquote, what this means, Mr. Speaker, is that within a maximum of 12 years from January 7, 1993, the FQ would have been fully implemented. Mr. Speaker, when Article 25(1)(b) then provides that, and I'm quoting, secondary education shall be made generally available and accessible to all by every appropriate means, and in particular by progressive introduction of free education, the obvious meaning is that after we have achieved free education at the basic level, the next stage, that is the next stage of free education, is the secondary level. We progress from basic to secondary education. Mr. Speaker, the Constitution has not stated anywhere, the Constitution has not stated anywhere that secondary education shall be made progressively free. It does not exist anywhere. It's a misreading of the Constitution. Mr. Speaker, Article 25(1)(c) says, higher education shall be made equally accessible to all on the basis of capacity by every appropriate means, and in particular by the progressive introduction of free education. Mr. Speaker, so we are talking about 3 stages of the implementation of free education. First at the basic level, the next stage of implementation is at the secondary school level, and the next stage is at the tertiary level. And that is the language of Article 25(1)(a), (b), and (c). Nowhere is it stated that secondary school shall be made progressively free. It's a complete misreading and misunderstanding of the Constitution. So when a group of people say that, oh, we started implementing free senior high, but we started it progressively, they can't even understand the import of that construction in the Constitution.
Are you listening?
Mr. Speaker, the President accounted to this nation when he said we have doubled capitation grants at the basic level. In 2011, after 2 years in office, the NDC under Professor Mills increased the capitation grant by 50%, 2 years in office. They increased the capitation grant by 50%. That was from 3 Ghana cedis to 4 cedis 50 pesos per child. Mr. Speaker, President Akufo-Addo in 1 year has doubled the capitation grant by 100%. He has implemented a free senior high school education, which has enabled more than 90,000 more students gain access to senior high education in 2017 than the figure was in 2016. Mr. Speaker, I heard a colleague of ours the other day in this debate, the other side of the divide, say to us that the increment, the 90,000, is attributable to population growth. Haba. Mr. Speaker, the account say maya and say meeting. Mr. Speaker, to wait. If you cannot praise me for my prowess, you don't defame me. Mr. Speaker, you don't defame me. Mr. Speaker, when we see a cow, we should appropriately describe what we are seeing as a cow.
Not like Baba Jama.
If we see sheep, we should call it sheep. If we see pig, we should call it pig. Mr. Speaker, I can't just understand this. Mr. Speaker, in the meantime, nursing training allowance has also been restored. Health insurance, which was comatose, has now left the intensive care unit. It is picking up. Government is responding to the constitutional imperative on the right to good health care. Mr. Speaker, agriculture is being revived, and the price of foodstuffs in the market attests to the effort of government. Mr. Speaker, the planting for food and jobs is yielding positive dividends. From Babatokuma through Kintampo, and I want to believe my dear sister Felicia is listening. Through Kintampo, Techima, Kumasi, Ajusu, Diapompo, Achidie, down to Accra, foodstuff sellers will tell you that the price of foodstuffs are falling by more than 100% in just over 1 year. Mr. Speaker, that can only be good for families, but we must at the same time ensure that the farmers receive commensurate recompense to motivate them to produce more, at the same time as ensuring that the raw materials to feed the factories do not become too expensive. Mr. Speaker, the One Village Wonder project is taking off in earnest this year. The minority that wants to know when it's taking off. It's starting in earnest this year. Mr. Speaker, the 50% subsidy on fertilizer is availing the resource to farmers in sufficient quantities. Unlike the almost free fertilizer program of the President John Mahama era, which even though was a very good policy on paper, sent huge quantities of fertilizers meant for local farmers across the borders to neighboring countries to the detriment of our farmers. Mr. Speaker, the President informs us that last year over 200,000 farmers signed up to the Planning for Food and Jobs scheme. The number is expected to grow to over 500,000 this year. Apart from the jobs being created in agriculture, food security is being ensured, and that will also encourage healthy eating to produce a healthier population. Mr. Speaker, last year, Major Mahama lost his life in the pursuit to bring in sanity in our mining activities to prevent the destruction of our lands and water bodies. Today, given what the task force has done and is still doing, illegal mining is considerably reduced. There are reports, though, that some of them engage in the activities in rivers and streams in the night. I believe very soon the shadowy operators will be mopped up by the task force that the armed forces have reinvigorated. Mr. Speaker, last year, when I took my turn to speak on the energy situation, I emphasized the point that Dunso, or to borrow the description of the minority leader, Adundumadundum, which the country was plunged into for more than 5 years under the Mills Mahama administration was not attributable to lack of generation capacity. It wasn't. Mr. Speaker, I related to what Nkrumah, Champagne, Rawlings, and Kufuor did. And I said President Rawlings' effort yielded 580 megawatts to the nation's power generation. Under Kufuor, the generation capacity that was commenced or added totaled 1,452 megawatts. Between President Rawlings and President Kufuor, a total of over 2,278 megawatts was added or commenced. Mr. Speaker, so it is not cheap talk. It is not cheap talk. Yes, some additional megawatts were added under President Mills and President Mahama. One cannot forget, Mr. Speaker, the car ship, the car power ship, the generating 450 megawatts, the APR 250 megawatts, GE 300 megawatts, and even America, over 1,000. That is being generated under the effort of Mills and Mahama. But Mr. Speaker, I insist that before President Kufuor left, the collaborative effort of Kufuor, Rawlings, Champagne, and President Nkrumah produced for this country about 3,300 megawatts. Peak demand in this country, as we speak, is still not beyond 2,600 megawatts. So the salvation of this country did not lie in increasing generating capacity. You want to sell extra capacity, extra electricity generated to neighboring countries. Nobody is buying because of the padded cost of electricity generation. Nobody is buying. That is the legacy that we have left this country. That is the legacy we have left this country. Indeed, Mr. Speaker, we in the MPP insisted that the problem that was in 2011 and 2012 was that government was seriously indebted to ECG by, at that time, more than 700 million Ghana cedis in 2011, and was indebted as well to VRA. Government owned the BDCs hugely, and the huge interests were piling up. This is the crux of the matter. It didn't lie, the answer did not lie in increasing generation capacity, as you rush to do. Mr. Speaker, that was the single cause of Adundum, Honorable Harun Idusu. That was the single cause of Adundum. Not the fact that we didn't have sufficient generation capacity. Mr. Speaker, so today, when my friend opposite asked what single megawatts has this government contributed to the power generation, yes, this administration has not added. What we have added,
hold on. Can you resume your seat? You don't interfere with your leaders. But I just wanted to inform you that you have exhausted your 30 minutes, so please wind up.
Thank you very much. I'll be concluding very soon. Except to, Mr. Speaker, put it on record that the minority leader spoke for 33 minutes, 41 seconds. He spoke for 33 minutes, 41 seconds. If for purposes of the record. Mr. Speaker, the problem, as we said, was financial and managerial. That is what competence the MPP has introduced to relight the country. Mr. Speaker, it is important at this stage to remind ourselves of the words in the composition of the venerable musicologist, Mr. Ephraim Amo, who said, "This is our land." I'm translating the words in his lyrics. This is our land. It is an invaluable treasure to us. Blood was shed to secure and protect it. It is now the turn of you and I to continue on that path. Dishonesty, lies, propaganda, and selfishness would wreak havoc on our national life, and love for country has been completely lost. Mr. Speaker, we should learn useful lessons from Ephraim Amo. Mr. Speaker, the NPP government is making history by adding value to our national development agenda. The citizens are living witnesses. The Speaker, the exfoliating EC2 propagandists insist they have not seen anything. That is excusable because, Mr. Speaker, when sunshine is introduced to people who have lived in the dark for a very long time, they could be rendered blind. That explains the cacophony that we are witnessing as a nation today. Mr. Speaker, I thank you very much for the space afforded. Thank you once again very much.
Honorable members, at the conclusion of the debate, the question is all in favor say aye. All against say no. The ayes have it. The motion is carried. The House has accordingly approved the motion to thank His Excellency the President for his message on the state of the nation, which he delivered to this House on Thursday, 8 February 2018. The Right Honourable Speaker will convey the gratitude of the House to the President in accordance with Order 58 of the Standing Orders. Honourable Majority Leader.
Speaker, I think we can take the motion listed as item number 9. And, Speaker, I may want to seek your indulgence to have the Deputy Minister for Finance, Honourable Kwatim, move the motion on behalf of the Minister.
Very well. Motion listed as item number 9. Honourable Deputy Minister for Finance.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to move that the motion listed as item 9 on page 4 of the order paper be read a second time. Mr. Speaker, investments across borders.
I don't know if the
Minister
has a different order paper than mine. He said, order page 4. This item is on page 3. The one I have. The one I have.
Honourable Minister, please speak to your mic. Honourable Deputy Minister, please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to move that the standard for automatic exchange of financial account information bill 2017 be now read a second time. I so move, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, in doing so, with your permission, I'd like to state that investments across borders are on the rise, and therefore some tax obligations have also acquired cross-border character. With this is its attendant challenge with tax evasion. Mr. Speaker, one way to address this, to address the phenomenon of people doing business across borders evading the taxes they ought to pay globally, is for tax authorities to work together. Fortunately, Mr. Speaker, Ghana is a member of the Global Forum on Transparency and Exchange of Information. Accordingly, we have signed the Multilateral Competent Authority Agreement.
This provides for the automatic exchange of financial account information from 2018 with other participating jurisdictions. Mr. Speaker, I have to state that this bill therefore implements the common reporting standard by imposing on financial institutions an obligation to report information regarding the financial accounts of reportable individuals or entities to the Ghana Revenue Authority after conduct of due diligence. Due diligence with respect to those accounts. Mr. Speaker, what this bill is therefore seeking to do is to create a framework within which this exchange of information could happen in an orderly, properly regulated way. It is therefore my view, Mr. Speaker, that given that this automatic exchange of information ought to begin in 2018, that this House should pass this into law so that we can exchange this information in accordance with law. With this, I thank you for the opportunity, Mr. Speaker.
Very well. The chairman of the committee may now present the report of the committee.
Mr. Speaker, I associate myself with the motion and speak to sections of the committee's report. I will entreat the Hansard Department to capture the report fully. Mr. Speaker, the world is increasingly becoming globalized, and therefore making it easier for taxpayers to make, hold, and manage investments through financial institutions outside their countries of residence. Mr. Speaker, to this extent, taxpayers fail to comply with their tax obligations at home. A number of them also keep vast amounts of money offshore just to avoid payment of taxes. Mr. Speaker, the offshore tax evasion has become a serious problem for countries all over the world. As a result, countries have come together to help address this problem. Mr. Speaker, key to this fight is the need to improve transparency and exchange of information. Thus, the Global Forum on Transparency and Exchange of Information for Tax Purposes, of which Ghana is a member, has developed the Common Reporting Standard as a new global standard for the exchange of tax information. Mr. Speaker, in fulfillment of her international obligations as a member of the Global Forum on Transparency and Exchange of Information for Tax Purposes, Ghana signed on the Multilateral Competent Authority Agreement, MCAA, on 14th May 2015. The MCAA requires Ghana to automatically exchange financial account information from the year 2018 with other participating countries. Mr. Speaker, it is in accordance with Article 75 of the Constitution that this bill has been presented to Parliament for the House to ratify the MCAA and to put in place the necessary legal framework to collect the relevant information as per the agreement. Observations. Mr. Speaker, in response to whether the bill will not breach confidentiality agreements between clients and financial institutions in the country, the Deputy Minister indicated that there are a number of laws that require agencies to report on the financial activities of their clients. These include existing banking laws and the Financial Intelligence Act. The Speaker, she explained that the law is only permitting member countries to request for information of their nationals for tax purposes and vice versa. So, Speaker, the Deputy Minister also indicated that the Ghana Revenue Authority has undertaken a number of sensitization workshops for stakeholders in order to prepare the grounds for a smooth takeoff. So, Speaker, after careful consideration, the committee is of the view that the bill is in the right direction and therefore recommends to the House to adopt its report and pass the Standard for Automatic Exchange of Financial Account Information Bill 2017 in accordance with the 1992 Constitution and the standing orders of the House. Respectfully submitted, Mr. Speaker.
Sorry? Honorable Chairman of the committee, I did not hear you second the motion.
Mr. Speaker, Order 81 provides that unless otherwise provided in these orders, every motion, unless made at the second reading or consideration of a bill, must be seconded, and if not seconded, shall not be debated or entered into the votes and procedure. Mr. Speaker, respectfully, at the second reading of a bill, we don't second the motion. Thank you.
You're right. Yes, Honorable Minority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, thank you very much. I do know that you would appreciate other members contributing to the second reading of this important bill. But, Mr. Speaker, I have some preliminary concern I want to raise. The principle and content, I'm well and fine with it. Indeed, Mr. Speaker, I had the rare privilege to lead Ghana's delegation to get Ghana formally admitted into the OECD on behalf of the Honorable Minister Setekpe, supported then by Ambassador Swanika, a lady ambassador who was there. So I can appreciate the cross-cutting benefit that the country will have. But, Mr. Speaker, my preliminary objection, and the chairman may want to explain it to my satisfaction. Paragraph 5.1. Paragraph 5.1. Rationale for the bill. And Mr. Speaker, he quotes, and I'm quoting for emphasis. She indicated that the request for ratification is coming under Article 75 2A in order to put in place a legal framework under the MCAA to collect the relevant information. So, Mr. Speaker, that leads me to page 2, another preliminary observation for the chairman to explain. And Mr. Speaker, I quote again. It is in accordance with Article 75 of the Constitution that this bill has been presented to Parliament. Mr. Speaker, Article 75, as I understand it, is for purpose of international ratification. And it indicates again, with your indulgence, I like to quote Article 75, even though it's the power of Parliament to ratify. The words used there, it says the President may execute or cause to be executed treaties, agreements, or conventions in the name of Ghana. A treaty, agreement, or convention executed by or under the authority of the President shall be subject to ratification by an act of Parliament or a resolution of Parliament. I'm at a loss whether one, Ghana ratified this particular treaty, and that Parliament subsequently, after the President executed it, did same to give meaning to it. Mr. Speaker, if you take the bill, which we are all reading, I find the clauses and sub-clauses too clumsy to meet the requirements of your standing order in terms of head notes and then clause by clause provision, even the preamble. And then, Mr. Speaker, bills are introduced in this House under Article 106 of the Constitution. From my understanding, not Article 75 as it appears in the committee report. And then, Mr. Speaker, I can take you to some worrying page. If you go to page 100 to 101 of this bill, it doesn't meet, for instance, even from page 99, 97, the writing and the wording does not meet the requirement of a bill. If you want us to ratify, the principle we all agree for people to make disclosures. But if you read the bill, the parts are too clumsy, and then Article 75 does not for our purposes, is not the mode of introducing a bill. Article 106 that. So, Chairman, in your committee's report in page 2, you are referring to, in accordance with Article 75 of the Constitution, that this bill, but I was attempting to get a cure for you that maybe you are coming under 75 by an act of Parliament. But all that I thought we should have an understanding. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
First, I want to be clear. Are you moving a motion to stop, or is that your comment on the bill?
Rightly so, Mr. Speaker. My comment, preliminary observations, I wish I gave it my wholehearted support, but I want the constitutional principles to be satisfied first, and the references.
Yes, Honourable Minister for Monitoring and Evaluation.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the minority leader is right. Article 75 tells us how we can ratify a bill. One of it is through an act of Parliament. And this bill is inclined to do same. So once we pass the bill, it will be deemed to have been ratified. That is why it is coming as a bill. Thank you.
Very well. Honourable Member for Sechira, from please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to support the motion. Mr. Speaker, there is a universal recognition that the income tax evasion starved the government of much needed revenue and undermine the perceived fairness of the tax system. Mr. Speaker, establishing the global regime to exchange account information is facilitate the tax transparency in which, in return, will lead to a greater compliance with the income tax law across the jurisdiction. The fact is that the rules affect individuals with accounts outside their country. Mr. Speaker, observations, the rationale for the bill. The rationale for the bill is that instead, if one holds an account in US, by passing this law, we can write to the tax authority in US to request for the account details of the individual or the customer. Likewise, the US people can write to the country to request for the details. There is a natural tension between transparency and data privacy. The initial burden lies on the financial institution to identify non-resident customers. And the financial institution have no obligation to comply with that order. But the problem is, how is the financial institution complying with the oath of secrecy of their customers? Mr. Speaker, the question that we need to ask, what are the level of resources you will need to implement and maintain the compliance process, system, and control? And what about the training? What training is required for the frontline staff working with the customers who have questions? Mr. Speaker, it is acknowledged that implementing this bill, this will involve a potential significant compliance cost to the financial institution and the administrative cost to the Ghana revenue. Another thing is that what happened to the additional information collected that does not need to be exchanged? All this needs to be asked before this bill can be accepted, so that we are not pushing the burden onto financial institutions. Because we can see that most of the financial institutions, we have been burdening them with so many taxes, and we need to sit down and think about what they can do, because they are employing a lot of people in the system. With these few words, thank you, Mr. Speaker, support.
Yeah, then I will do to Minister for Information.
Mr. Speaker, thank you for the opportunity, and I speak in support of the motion. Very quickly, Mr. Speaker, this in recent weeks is the second time we are, under Article 75, ratifying, this time by another approach, an international agreement that the government of Ghana signed many years ago. The last one we did was the agreement between the government of Ghana and the United States of America regarding mutual assistance between their customs organizations. That one was signed in 2003, but its ratification literally, had delayed for more than a decade. This one that we are, by a bill of parliament seeking to ratify, was also signed, I think, as far back as 2014. This is about 4 years down the line. I do acknowledge that there are instances in which governments, for strategic reasons, delay ratification and observe if other countries will actually go ahead before they so do. But I think that it is worth commending government for making efforts to bring many of these outstanding international agreements to this House for the proper thing to be done. Mr. Speaker, the second thing I want to talk about is a provision of Section 3(2)(a) and B of the Income Tax Act 2015, Act 896, as amended. And with your permission, if I may read, 3(2)(a) says, in the case, and this deals with the assessable income of taxable persons. It says, in the case of a resident person, the income of that person from each employment, business, or investment for the year, whether or not the source from which the income is derived has ceased. That's the assessable income of a person for the year of assessment from any employment, business, or investment. B, in the case of a non-resident person, the income of that person from the employment, business, or investment for the year, to the extent to which that income has a source in this country, and where the person has a Ghanaian permanent establishment, income for the year that is connected with a permanent establishment, irrespective of the source of this income. Mr. Speaker, some tax experts and analysts have suggested that this can be properly interpreted to mean that for persons resident in Ghana who have investments or who offer services beyond the Ghanaian jurisdiction and earn incomes, depending on the double taxation agreement between Ghana and that jurisdiction, the Republic of Ghana can actually get tax revenue from them based on these provisions. But even though this has been passed in 2015, the practical means of making use of it has been difficult. But today, thankfully, if indeed we are able to go ahead with the passage of this bill, this standard for automatic exchange of financial accounting information bill, if we're able to pass it into law, to provide a framework for the Ghana Revenue Authority to actually get the information that will give life to the provisions under Section 3(2)(a) and B. And I think that it is something that we should take very seriously, because for Ghanaian experts and professionals who render services abroad and earn a lot of hard currency, whatever tax components that may be occasioned on that could be very significant in helping to improve our revenues that the government of Ghana needs to deliver on the many services that we have promised our people here in this country. Mr. Speaker, with these 2 points, I wholly support this motion. It is my hope that this House will do a diligent job on this bill and have it passed into law as soon as possible. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Member for Wa West.
Mr. Speaker, thank you very much. I support the bill because it is one that is going to make sure that those who save their money and do business in offshore banks and elsewhere, the opportunity exists through this law to get them to pay taxes to Ghana. And that is why I support it. It also will enable Ghana give information to people who have some businesses here and they don't want to pay taxes in their countries. That is my concern, because they will use that money for other things other than what they should do. And maybe for obvious reasons, they owe it a duty to their country to have this taxes paid. The second reason is that, you see, if you look at it, this government is gleaning everywhere for tax, how to get money. So this is one of the places that they can get a lot of money. And as he rightly said, if you have Ghanaians who have invested in insurance and other businesses elsewhere and earning good money, they are not contributing to what we are doing to develop our country. This law enables us to do so. But there are two things about the law. First, the way it has been crafted, it accords with the Constitution, all right. But the language is very turgid, very difficult, because it is arising out of a convention. And there are technical terms which are not readily understood by the average person. I believe that after the passage of this bill, the Ghana Revenue Authority must mount a vigorous campaign to educate particularly the professionals who will be affected and those who are to gather this information. Of course, the issue of confidentiality has already been raised, but that also is part of the agreement, where the information that you collect, you will handle it in such a way that the GRA must handle this information in such a way as not to jeopardize the business interests of that institution that is reporting on. And I believe that if, as a parliament, we look through thoroughly and make sure that this bill is passed, we would have been fulfilling the major agreement that we signed in 2014. Now, having said so, there is a need for us always to bring these laws and these agreements to Parliament for ratification first and foremost, so that we discuss the principles. And if we think that these accords with our own objectives as a nation, then we go ahead to legislate, to domesticate these conventions into the way it is. Now, the agreement has, the bill has two schedules, and the cross-referencing is quite difficult. But I think that it is a good bill. Let us pass it and ensure that we enforce it. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
At the conclusion of the debate, honourable members, the question is: all in favour of the motion say aye. Aye. All against say no. The ayes have it. The motion is carried.
An act to implement the common reporting standard approved by the Council of the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development on 15 July 2014 to designate the Commissioner General as the competent authority to ensure an improved international tax compliance by imposing on financial institutions an obligation to report information regarding certain financial accounts of an individual or an entity to the Ghana Revenue Authority to the conduct of due diligence with respect to financial accounts and for related matters.
The Standard for Automatic Exchange of Financial Account Information Bill 2017 is accordingly read a second time. Honourable Majority Leader.
Speaker, I know the Finance Committee has some engagement outside the chamber, but I may plead with them to let us begin the consideration of the taxation use of fiscal electronic device bill. We can do about 2-3 clauses. Maybe we decide then to adjourn some 15 minutes to 2 to enable them go and have their engagements. So just to begin.
Yes, Minority Leadership.
Last Speaker, I think it's in order. We can continue with the
very well.
No, we are not.
This is your general.
You should continue with the consideration of the bill. Yeah.
The taxation use of fiscal electronic device bill 2017 at the consideration stage. Clause 1.
Purpose.
Amendment proposed.
Mr. Speaker, Clause 1.
Yes.
Amendment proposed. Add the following new paragraph. D. Promote cashless payment in sale transactions.
Yes, I remember for other group.
Mr. Speaker, I don't have problem with the proposal, but why payment? Why not just simply transaction? Because it's not only about payment, it's also about receiving. So why not cashless transaction rather than cashless payment? If the chairman can reconsider substituting the word payment with transaction.
Yes, Honorable Deputy Minister.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the point of this amendment is that there is an existing government policy to promote a cash-light economy. That is to say, an economy in which payments are made through various payment means other than cash. The less cash we have in the economy, the better. Now, if there's an opportunity to deploy fiscal electronic devices, then government has decided as part of that initiative to promote the cash-light society as we have as a policy. So what is being suggested here is that the rollout, the devices, should facilitate the use of other payment methods other than cash. So this will be taken into account when the specification for the devices are being prescribed. Then payment provision will be made, for instance, for cash payments. That is the point. So it has to do with payments rather than just transactions.
Yes, Honorable Member for hours.
Speaker, I think that the further amendment he wants, it's not just in lawmaking. You cannot just talk about transactions. Transactions is more general. But we are talking about payments. And you want cashless payments. It's a method of doing the transaction. But we want to be specific here about payments rather than just say transactions. This is a specific law about payments.
Honourable members, I'll put a question. All in favour of the proposed amendment say aye. All against say no. The ayes have it. The amendment is carried. Clause 2.
Application.
There is no advertised amendment, so I'll put a question. All in favour of Clause 2, forming part of the bill, say aye. All against say no. The ayes have it. The amendment is carried. Clause 2 is ordered to form part of the bill. Clause 3, amendment proposed.
Obligation to use fiscal electronic device.
Mr. Speaker, Clause 3. Amendment proposed. Subclause 1. Read draft as follows.
Honourable members, I'll put the question. All in favour of the proposed amendment say aye. All against say no. The ayes have it. The motion is carried. Clause 3, as amended, is ordered to form part of the bill. Further amendment to Clause 3, item III.
Mr. Speaker.
Chairman of the committee.
Mr. Speaker, Clause 3, amendment proposed, subclause 2, paragraph B. Delete and insert the following. Cause the fiscal electronic device to be installed at a conspicuous sales location on the premises of that person determined in accordance with subsection 1.
Honourable members, I put a question. All in favour of the proposed amendment say aye. I'm not hearing a voice vote. All in favour of the proposed amendment say aye. All against say no. The ayes have it. The amendment is carried. So at this time, shall put the last one. Clause 3 as amended shall form part of the bill. All in favor say aye. All against say no. The ayes have it. Clause 3 as amended is ordered to form part of the bill. The second Deputy Speaker will take the seat now.
Yes, Majority Leader. I saw you on your feet.
Mr. Speaker, the committee has an engagement outside the presence of this House. So we just wanted to start the consideration. So we're about winding up on that to continue tomorrow. But before we go, the Speaker, just to agitate the committee members, there was no advertised amendment, but two application. The minister may, on the recommendation of the board, by legislative instrument, amend the first schedule. The Speaker, it would seem to me that this construction necessarily subjects the decision of the minister to the recommendation of the board. And I thought that is inappropriate to say that the minister, whenever the minister decides to come by a legislative instrument, it must necessarily be on the recommendation of the board. Is that what the committee wants? Is that what the ministry wants? I think there's a difficulty, and they may have to look at it again.
Chairman, you've heard the Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, if the Majority Leader would go ahead and propose an amendment, otherwise I can propose one.
Mr. Speaker, as I said, there was no advertised announcement. It just crossed my mind. But I would suggest to them that they rather have a construction to read like this: the minister may, in consultation with the board.
Majority Leader, that is clause 2.2. Clause 2.2.
Yes, Mr. Speaker. They can ponder over that, and maybe we meet when they meet tomorrow. I think consultation is better than saying that it should necessarily be on the recommendation of the board.
Have you done that? Well, since you want to take a date, is it not proper to rather have it well drafted for tomorrow? Yes, I think then it will be put on the order paper for us to consider it well.
Mr. Speaker, I agree. That is why I said it's just food for thought for them. But I just looked through the bill just now and I saw that. I brought it up for consideration by the committee themselves. So I guess they can ponder over that and do the appropriate thing tomorrow.
So we could move on to the next clause, or you wanted to take a date?
Mr. Speaker, I want to propose an adjournment because the committee themselves have a very serious appointment now.
So, subject to your indulgence, Mr. Speaker, I want to move that this House adjourns until tomorrow.
The minority bench. A motion has been moved for the adjournment of the House. What do you say? Yes, the mace is now being properly put. Yes. Now, Majority Leader. Sorry. Why? Is your leader out of order? He is not a member of Parliament. He is not a member of Parliament. And he is not a stranger in the House. Yes, please.
The Speaker, I think he is raising something different. He said he heard you say that we have come to the end of the constitution stage.
No.
So just to clear that.
Oh, he didn't hear me. Oh, sorry.
For the day.
Yes, you may now move the motion.
Yes. Mr. Speaker, I do now move that the House adjourns until 10 o'clock in the forenoon tomorrow. I so move.
Any seconder?
Mr. Speaker, the leader, the mover of the motion, say 10 o'clock. And I'm seconding the motion that tomorrow, 10 o'clock, I'll be in the chamber here.
Honorable members, the motion for adjournment has been moved and seconded. It's now for the consideration of the House. The House, yes.
Mr. Speaker, I'm not arresting it. I heard 10 o'clock. I just want to be sure you said 10 o'clock tomorrow morning before we take the vote.
I have not yet adjourned the House.
Yes.
So I have not given any time.
Okay.
Do you have any problem with 10 o'clock in the forenoon?
Certainly, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, what is the problem?
The whole of this month, we only appeared in the chamber once at 10 o'clock. And it's something I'm worried about. If you're going to say 10 o'clock, then I encourage everybody to be here at 10 o'clock. That is why I got on my feet.
Well, you know, the majority leader is on his feet, so yes, there's an issue.
Mr. Speaker, I believe it's a worthy concern, but the issues are not attributable to the speakership. Speaker, today, for instance, I was in the holding room of the Speaker, 9:45. We're observing the business in the chamber, and there was nobody. And you don't expect the Speaker to walk into an empty chamber. The Speaker, so members should undertake to be present in the chamber in the fullness of time. And that will then motivate the Speaker to walk in. So, Mr. Speaker, the burden is on us, members of Parliament, to be much more diligent than we have been. I thank you.
Honorable members, an issue has been raised with regard to punctuality. He is not opposing the motion. He's just drawing our attention to the issue of punctuality. And I want to take this opportunity to urge members to always be on the floor before 10 a.m., where the Speaker is always ready before 10 a.m. It's because it's not proper to always appear and assume the seat when the chamber is empty. And so honorable members should do everything possible to be here, usually before 10 a.m. With this, I proceed to put the question. And the question is that this House do adjourn till tomorrow at 10 a.m. when we shall reconvene convene to continue with the business of the House. Those in favor, say aye. Those against, say no. The ayes have it. The House is accordingly, the motion is carried and the House is accordingly adjourned.